Hey business besties, welcome back to the show. I'm Jasmine. I am the host of Female Founder World, and today I'm chatting with the two co-founders of Shameless Media. I've got Zara and Michelle with me today. How are you guys going?
We're great.
We're very happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
So, okay, so people know your voices. Zara, let's do a sound off.
Hello, I am Zara. I'm really sorry. This might be some people take a while to get to find the distinction between our voices, which I find
100%.
funny.
Yeah, and I'm Michelle.
And also, I feel like for the US listeners, they're just going to hear 3 Australian accents.
Yeah.
And just think it's the same person.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Okay, for people that don't know Shameless Media, what have you guys built?
We have built a small media company. We're very podcast centric, but we're not just podcasts. We also have newsletters. We have social media platforms. We essentially set out to build and create the content we've always craved. We found ourselves at 23 looking at the podcasting landscape and thinking, this is amazing. We love podcasts. They're all a little bit maybe more mature or older than what we would like to listen to ourselves. So our first podcast was Shameless, and we set out to create a show that we just genuinely wanted to listen to ourselves.
Yeah, I think the thing about our business is we never set out to build a business. We just wanted to create a show as former writers and journalists that we wanted to listen to. And it wasn't just the podcasting industry that we saw a gap in. It was media in general. I think digital media at that point wasn't speaking to women of our age, which was women in their early 20s. And so we were like, well, there's a gap here. We'll just create a podcast. And from there, I think because we were able to nail that niche pretty well, we were like, well, there are other gaps we want to fill. We're going to create those shows too. So now we have a business of 4 podcasts at the moment. We've had 4 or 5 ongoing, as Mish said, like newsletter arms and huge social media communities around that. And I think we were one of the first people to kind of build not just a podcast, but like a world around that, which was a thriving social media community as well as a newsletter community.
Yeah, we really set out to make each brand underneath the Shameless Media brand stand on its own 2 feet. So they are independent of each other. We believe so much in the ideas themselves behind each show that that show could live on without our involvement. Like, it's so strong on its own 2 feet kind of thing.
You said before, right at the top, that you've built a small media brand. And I get that, like, compared to maybe some of these legacy
News Corp,
brands.
yeah.
I actually was going to pause that and say, can we cut the small?
Yeah, you've had more than 100 million downloads. You've got 1.5 million followers more across channels.
I
20
guess
staff.
I say small because it's a team of 20.
No, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Like, objectively, we are small. But then also, when you think about independent media, particularly in Australia, it's not easy to build something and to crack through and for that to be profitable. So the moment you're able to actually do that, you kind of surpass the label of small. I would say small to medium.
Would we like me to rebrand? Small,
Independent.
yet mighty and profitable media company.
You're fully bootstrapped.
Yeah,
no
fully bootstrapped.
investors. You're profitable. The things that I wanted to talk to you about. So first of all, it's about building a media business, right? I want to learn what you guys have done, what's working for anyone else who is out there and wants to do the same thing. I'm also really curious about content and audience building and what works, and that stuff that can be applied to anyone who's building a business, whether it is a media company or it is CPG or tech or whatever. We're all building media businesses at the moment in this current landscape. And so I was just like, let's get 2 experts who dedicate their time.
Hopefully there is something to offer here.
Guys, if you're not an expert, I don't know who possibly is.
I agree with you, though, in terms of every business is a media business, because I feel like I was listening to the Poppy founder, Alison Ellsworth speak recently, and a huge part of their growth trajectory was content on TikTok.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, given they sold for such a stupid amount of money
Nearly
recently,
$2 billion.
content is often the center of a lot of it, beside good product.
And the way that she also showed up on the TikTok, like she was really forward facing in a way that I think a lot of people weren't doing, and when she kind of started. And she's spoken at our events a couple of times. I've interviewed her before, and something that she said that really stuck out to me when I asked her, you know, I don't think she was the CEO. I think maybe her husband was the CEO, or they were co-CEOs. But I was like, you're running this big business now. You have so many things that you can be doing, should be doing, all of it. Why do you spend your time making content? And she said, I can outsell JLo. Like, why wouldn't I be at the front of the content? And so, yeah, everyone build the media business while you're building whatever it is that's your true product.
Yeah, and I think the way I always frame it back to myself is we're actually talking about attention. Like when we're talking about content and building a community or an audience or a business, you're talking about the science of figuring out what will get and keep someone's attention. I feel like it's never been more important to hone that skill or really focus on that as a business founder Because so many things compete for our attention 24/7. Like humans have never had so many things, so much content, so much whatever vying for their attention at one time. If you can figure out that first 3 to 5 seconds of how to get someone and then how to actually make the product entertaining enough and enthralling enough to keep them for the whole duration of that piece of content, it's probably the most valuable skill you could have in at least the game we're in.
Totally agree. 100% agree. I want to go back to the beginning, your origin story. It's 2018. You guys kicked off with one show. What was the idea there and what were those early days like?
So as you said, we were working at Mamma Mia at the time, which
is a media company in
Australia, the biggest women's network in Australia, and we were young writers there. And what we wanted at that time was to host and build a show where we spoke about celebrity or stuff that people would generally consider pretty stupid in a not very stupid way. I think there were so many ways to like Trojan horse people and have important conversations with like dumb stuff. And I have that in inverted commas as the hook. And we kind of said to Mamma Mia at that time, like, we would love to create this show for young people. At the time, no one's speaking to people our age. And it didn't quite work out with them. And so we said to them, do you mind if we create this ourselves out of hours? And they said, go for your life. We had no podcasting experience. So I imagine that's exactly why they said yes, because they were like, podcasting is a science. And if someone said that to me now, I would say, go off and do it. It's not an easy thing to do. As Mish said, again, it all comes down to attention. And I think there is a really specific way to create a great show. And we didn't have any of those skills at that time. We had to teach ourselves them. So we started building the show on the side, and it only took sort of 6 to 8 weeks before we decided this was something we were going to pursue outside of our full-time jobs, that this was the thing that was our thing. And quite ridiculous with hindsight because we were quite young, but we didn't have anything to lose. And I don't want to underestimate or under-egg the risks we took at the start. I think they were clever. But I also, when people come to me now and say, I don't know whether to jump, I have to be self-aware about the fact that we were really young and it was different to doing it now. It would be a different kettle of fish if we were 30 or 31 and wanting to make a jump, but we were 23 and we thought, yeah, let's just do this.
If not now, when? Kind of thing.
When did the business start making money?
Oh, so we launched the show in March 2018. I remember we took on our first sponsor. I think it was that October or November.
So we just cold called people.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
It was
still
a lipstick
cold calling
brand.
people, by the way.
Yeah. And the amount we were charging was like next to nothing, to be honest. So when I'm saying the episodes were making money, $60, I think was the amount to sponsor our first episodes, maybe 90.
It was $90.
$90. And
to like sponsor the whole episode.
The whole episode. Yeah. And obviously we've come away since then, thank God. But we had no idea about how to make the most of this audience we were reaching. I remember we were probably reaching 12,000 listeners an episode. And to us at the time, we were like, oh God, like this is so marketable. We've got such an audience to monetize now.
Yeah, we have to do it. And I think so we started trying to do it ourselves. And I think by that January, so call it 10 months after we started, we were approached by a talent manager because there was kind of no real space for us. None of the networks wanted us. In Australia, you have kind of 2 to 3 big podcasting networks. We had pitched ourselves to them. No one wanted to take us. And that was the theme of that entire year of 2018. Mamma Mia didn't want the show and none of the big networks in Australia wanted the show.
It was actually kind of like we felt absolutely pathetic. Like we would email people, do the full pitch. By this point, the show was out there as well. So like they could listen to us as hosts. They could see all the branding. They could get the full idea. When we pitched it to Mamma Mia, it didn't exist and they rejected it, which is like totally fair enough. The other networks rejected it once it was out there. So we were like, oh shit, no one believes in it.
Yeah. But a talent manager came along because there was no real place for us. This was a while ago in the context of the podcasting industry.
A lifetime ago.
And she was like, I think I can monetize this in not a dissimilar way to the way that I monetize influencers. You know, there are brand campaigns coming in. You have an engaged audience. Let's do it. And so that's what we did straight away from the start of 2019. And from that point is when we were able to go full-time in terms of making money where we didn't need another income. So when, you know, people talk about pulling a salary, we just pulled a salary from that point and were able to survive.
Wasn't a huge salary, but like, yeah.
No.
But it was enough.
It was enough.
Yeah.
I love to talk about the money piece of the business because at the end of the day, the difference between a business and a hobby is the fact that it needs to make money. And I want to know, decided not to take investment. I'm sure lots of people have come to you, especially in the last few years, offering that, and how you guys have upskilled in just like the skills that are required to be able to run a business and balance a profitable business when your background is the content, the media side, and you're so amazing at that. How have you like bridged that gap?
Well, I
Or
mean,
who have you hired, or like what have you done?
I think more than bridging the gap or hiring someone, I think Zara actually upskilled a lot.
Amazing.
And I'm really grateful for that as her co-founder, because I think that was an area we didn't really know a lot about. And Zara is probably one of the best learners I've ever met in my life.
I think it was really interesting when we kind of decided that this was a business. And that was probably in around 2019 when we said, actually, yeah, Shameless Podcast, but Shameless Media publishes it. We didn't have anything else, but there was something there for us. I think we knew we wanted to create other things. I don't think we ever sat down and had a conversation which was, hey, you seem really good at this and I seem really good at this. Let's go in our slightly different directions. We just did it. And I in no way want that to be unhelpful. I think there is a genuine symbiosis in the way that we work. We've said that a lot. And I think there's a lot of luck. And when you find that, you have to just like hold on to it really, really tight in a co-founder. And Michelle, I have said to death and will continue to say, is the best at building audiences. And so she pushed hard into audience development and social media, and I pushed hard into business and how to make sure we were growing at a stable rate. And it just worked. And I think for us, we've always gone quite slowly. We actually built it quite slowly when you think about it. It wasn't until about 2022 that we launched our second show, Everybody Has a Secret, which was 4 years after we launched Shameless, which I think has been our MO from the start, which is like, do not grow too fast. There were people coming up to us constantly, people interested by that point in various parts of the business. But we very much kept our head down and grew the thing at a pace that we could manage. And that has been the most important thing, as is keeping all the money in the business.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's one thing that I'm grateful Zara and I never even had to really learn. We both have the same money values. Two, I would say like if you had a 100% pie graph or whatever, 100% same money values. We have never, ever once disagreed on money, and we're very conservative with how we spend. And it would be very difficult to have a founder where they wanted to spend more money or take more money from the business. We always implicitly understood with each other that we were keeping as much money in this business to be able to grow it to the point that we have. Like there's no way we'd be able to grow or scale to 20 employees if we were taking money out, you know, for early days and taking them out and funding our own lifestyles. And I understand why different business founders do that. To be honest, I think from the early days, we've chosen to take a semi-risky path. Like there was a world where we could have just licensed Shameless Podcast to a network. Once it was a big enough show, established show by 2020, the networks would have wanted it. We could have just licensed it to a network. We decided to take almost like a gambling route.
Yeah, it's really funny. We've been having a bit of this conversation between ourselves recently. It's true. Like we did take, at every juncture, we took the hardest path. And I think we're at a point now where we're talking about that a lot. And in no way do we regret it. I think it has fundamentally changed who we are as people. I think we have a lot more grit than we would have. I think our relationship is in a place it would never have been. Like it is the strongest relationship in my life almost, maybe behind my marriage.
Shout out to Mitch Nolly.
I think we have really had to band together through those hard times and just like stick together. And I don't think licensing the show would have forced us to do that. We would have been great mates, incredible mates. Yeah. We just wouldn't have seen the same things, but we would have been paid a lot more than what we've been paying ourselves for the last 7.5 years.
Well, we haven't changed our salary.
No, we haven't changed our salary.
Really?
Yeah. No. And that's why we also haven't taken on external investment, because we've looked at our own personal money values and thought, well, we could pull all this money out of the business and get investment, and that can be the money that sustains the business. Instead, we said, we'll keep the money in. Our lives are fine. What do we need huge amounts of money for right now anyway? And self-fund that way. But the line I've kept saying to Michelle is, no one tells you when you start a business that it may be, it's gambling. Yeah. You're actually gambling. And
but you're betting on yourself.
You're betting on yourself.
Yeah.
And I wonder how I would have felt if someone sat me down in the early days and told me that, to say, you may take all these risks and leave all this money in the business and do all of these things. And maybe financially it might not pay off in the way that it would have paid off if you took 3 different paths.
Yeah. Well, there's a sliding doors moment, right? Like you hear about the pay packets that different podcasters are on with networks. And of course, those are always rumored and you never know for sure. But there was a sliding doors moment. We've chosen this path and I'm so glad we did. Like running a business is really fulfilling in so many ways, particularly running a business with Zara. But it's been tricky. There's been tricky times as well, as grateful as I am for them all.
Asterix, yes.
You mentioned launching your second show in 2022, and something that really sticks out to me, you could have launched anything. Like once you had Shameless, there are so many different shows or avenues you could have gone down. It must have been really hard to think this is going to be show number 2 after the hit that you had with show number 1.
I
was
agree.
it?
And I actually probably have to kind of interrupt our own story, because what we did in that year 1 is I think we went too wide too quickly.
We did.
Sorry. And that's probably what we should acknowledge. So we launched Shameless, and then we thought, okay, the other ways we're going to quickly make money as well is we're going to do branded shows for brands. So we made a relationship show with Bumble called Love Etc. And we made a money show with Victoria Devine, the first season, called She's on the Money. And we did that really quickly because we were like, well, we can do this and let's do as much as we can. And literally within 6 months, we were like, we need to stop and focus on one thing at a time and do it well. And once we've nailed that thing really well, then we can go elsewhere and create a show that we love just for ourselves. And so we kind of parked those things, focused on Shameless for 4 years. And then, as you say, in 2022, Everybody Has a Secret came around. And yes, I didn't think in my heart of hearts, oh, wow, this will be tough following Shameless. Did you? I should have.
Because I think we had actually, to even extend on that story, just to make sure we're really not doing revisionist history, we had launched shows that flopped or like didn't quite hit in the way we wanted to.
I'm just revising everything.
Yeah, I think it's easy to look back at our story and go, oh, look, like hit after hit, Everybody Has a Secret does have a huge audience, particularly globally. Everybody Has a Secret has more followers on TikTok than Shameless does. It gets hundreds of thousands of downloads. Some of the episodes of Everybody Has a Secret have more downloads than some episodes of Shameless.
It's such a good premise.
Thank you. We love it. Anyone who loves gossip and secrets will love that show. But it wasn't the first one we did. The first one we did, we had a couple with ourselves, as we said. There was a show called Reality Check for a time, which was reviewing reality TV, which was the wrong idea for the business because we talk about reality TV on Shameless. It fits in the pop culture landscape. We got it wrong. I think what we've always valued, and the reason we forget those things when we sit down on podcasts like this, is because we fail fast.
Yeah.
We are really good, and I really like this about us. We're not good at everything, but we are good at failing fast, and we're good at putting our ego to the side and being like, we thought this would work. We were wrong. We are ditching this thing. We are letting go of this premise, this vision that we had in our head, and we're pivoting. I think it can be very, very hard for business founders to do that because your ideas are part of you and they are your ego. And turning back to yourself and saying, you got this wrong, you should have done something else, is very tricky. And I think we all get stuck in sunk cost fallacy as well. We go, well, we've spent 6 months on this thing. We've spent 6 years on this thing. But actually, that's done. You're never going to get the past back. The best thing you can do to yourself is ask yourself brutally, is this working? Is it as good as it could be? Is there something else out there that would be better? If the answer is yes, there is something else out there that's better, stop now.
Yeah, and that's what we did at that time. This was all in the same period, I would say, of 2018, 2019. And I remember when Michelle came to me and said, I think this is the next show, which was Everybody Has a Secret. I think I was sold from the start because the way she had framed it was, this will simply work on TikTok. It will work on TikTok. The snippets will work on TikTok, so we can work around that. Like, we can build
Our
downloads.
audience is there. Yeah.
The audience will come to ridiculous secrets on TikTok.
Yeah.
Let's reverse engineer this. The content will be good for a show. We can build an audience around that. And that's, I think, straight away why I wasn't stressed, because I was like, well, the TikTok audience will come. I back ourselves to find the podcast after that.
We had a great host in Annabelle waiting for, like, she was in the wings. You know, we've worked with Annabelle for so long. She joined us in 2019. She was our first ever hire. We knew she was incredible podcast talent. The audience loved her. It's like, Annabelle should host a show. What is the show that Annabelle's going to host as well?
I want to drill down a little bit more into how you make that decision around what makes a good new vertical or ecosystem to launch, because it sounds like some of the stuff you dabbled in the beginning was too close to what you were already doing, and then you've carved out this like verticals. Like, I think about a legacy media website, and there's a fashion vertical, and there's a career vertical, there's a pop culture, whatever, and I can kind of see how you're kind of carving that out a little bit through audio and through podcasts as well. When you think about launching new products, how do you make that decision about where to go and what the roadmap is?
We have a very strong value, which is content over money, right? The good content will bring money. That said, we also have to acknowledge that when we come up with an idea, this actually will have to bring money to sustain it. It's an incredibly cluttered landscape, podcasting. I'm not the first person to have ever said that. But I think for us, what we decided when we had, okay, Shameless, and then Everybody Has a Secret wasn't so much as a niche or a pillar that we were trying to find. We were like, this is just a fun idea. After that, it was like, okay, now we actually need to hit stuff that no one is hitting. And I did think with the rest of our team, and Michelle again led this, which was like fashion and beauty. What are we doing? What are we doing in fashion and beauty? Of course, we have the Vogues and we have the L's and they're all doing it really well, but no one is doing it in the audio space. And I think, again, it's the fashion, and again, it's like the shameless angle on fashion and beauty, which was like having it infused with personality. It was like fashion with personality, which again, we just found we weren't finding. I've tried a few times sort of in a conversation with Michelle to say, should we change our tagline? Is this strong enough? Which is creating the content we always craved. I'm like, this is sticky. But then every time we create a pillar, it's like, well, I'm craving this.
Yeah.
Our guts are leading us here. We're desperate for it. It's kind of as simple as that.
Yeah, if we want it, we make it. I think that's it. And it was the same thing with Inherited, our interview show. I kept turning to Zara and being like, I want an interview show, not for myself. I want it for the brand. I mean, I'd love to host an interview show, but also that's been very deliberate that we pull ourselves off our pillars. When we launch them, we no longer host them. Kept going to Zara, I want an interview show, I want an interview show. And you kept coming back to me and saying, what is the difference? Like, what is our interview show that makes it any way different to the bevy of other interview shows out there? And we ended up landing on an idea that does make Inherited so different in that people bring 4 things to each interview. They bring a relic, a rule, a ritual, and a recipe. And they kind of explore their life and the lessons they've learned along the way through those 4 avenues. But that is crucial to every show. If we are launching it, it has to be different to what's out there. It has to have a point of difference. It has to be sharp enough. We always say this as well. In a cluttered landscape, you need a sharp, focused idea. A cluttered idea is not going to cut through. If you're coming up with a podcast and going, well, it's 2 friends sitting down talking about the shit they care about that week. Unfortunately, unless those 2 people are reality TV contestants or have existing profiles, even then, I don't think it will probably work. 9 times out of 10, it will eventually dry up and not be cutting through. If you have 2 people who don't have profiles, it's never going to work. It's too cluttered now.
Yeah, it's way too cluttered. It may have worked 10 years ago, but it won't work now. And we constantly talk about this value exchange with our content, which is like they have to walk away with some value. And yes, a lot of that can be levity and fun, but truthfully, I go pretty hard on like, they also have to leave this like 1% smarter. Even in our stupidest episodes, they actually have to hear something and think, that's a good way of framing it.
Yeah.
In all our shows, there has to be that exchange. Otherwise, it just simply won't cut through. And so as much as we've lent really hard into fun and entertainment, because I think there's a real kind of need for that right now, it also has to be smart. Like smarts has to be at the core of all of it. If it's not smart enough, it won't cut through.
Do you have a process for working that out? Do you guys like brainstorm as a team? Do you have some kind of like weird vision board map thing that you're doing? Or is it just conversations and working together and less
Sometimes
tangible?
Michelle will just send me an email to be like, I don't want to know. You open this at your own peril when you are ready. I think that is, and I think that's our different stuff coming to the fore when I'm trying to run the business and have my head fully in the business. When a creative person in the room goes, and I want to do all of these things, you're like, shut up.
Yeah.
But generally I'll say, okay, I'm going to open this when I have the mental capacity and then we'll brainstorm it together. It's always just been the 2 of us.
Yeah.
With these ideas, it has always been led by the 2 of us. And I think in many ways, it's just been more simple.
It's
That way.
cleaner.
It's a clean arrangement if we're able to create the show, build the infrastructure for the show, audition hosts, work out who is hosting it, and then give the team
The blueprint.
the blueprint to kind of carry it and go. We have found for our business, from an IP perspective, from a variety of different reasons, that's the simplest way.
I think it's such a superpower to be a founder who is your consumer or is your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're very lucky in that Zara and my taste, they don't always neatly overlap. In fact, I think it's great that they don't always overlap. We kind of touch different parts of culture, I guess. But we are very mainstream. Genuinely, the stuff I love and the stuff Zara loves is very mainstream.
Quite basic.
And I think that term can be muddied or dirtied, but it's actually brilliant. If your idea is mainstream or basic, congratulations, it's popular.
And
Like,
totally commercial.
Yeah.
Both of those things together.
Yeah. And I love when people come up with niche podcasting ideas. Of course I do. But and I know it might sound conflicting to say your idea needs to be popular, but it needs to be sharp enough to cut through. But the 2 things actually have to be true. It has to be popular It has to be appealing to a wide demographic of people. It has to be sharp and focused, and you can't just bleed out to all other areas. If you don't have those two things, you're not going to have a commercially successful show anyway.
And I think this is actually such good advice beyond media. If you are launching any product, that is such a good formula to think about what you're doing.
Well, it's like, I just need to want to listen to these shows.
Yes.
And it's the same as like anyone launching a product. Like, do you actually want or need to buy this? And I it's such a simple framework. And yet so often I feel like it's the one question we're not asking ourselves because I think ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
I think that is when, and we talk about ego a lot because we have to leave it at the door. It's impossible to separate yourself from your ego, but the amount of people who have great ideas who can't run a business because they cannot let their ego get out of the way is actually quite stunning and tragic to me at the same time. You know, like if you are not able to let your, if you're not able to kind of remove the emotion from some of these decisions, I don't think you're going to be able to scale.
Yeah.
I think there's also something there around like confidence and self-trust.
Yeah.
I think sometimes a lot of people can look to what someone else is doing because they don't have enough like trust in their own experiences and opinions that they're kind of like looking externally for direction. But it sounds like you guys have such a clear internal compass about what is the right decision and the wrong decision that you can like block that out.
Well, the interesting thing is when you talk about an internal compass, I don't actually see it like within my own chest. I see it sitting between Zara and myself.
Yeah.
And I think we're incredibly lucky, but I think we've also cultivated this between us as business co-founders. We are great together. If we were off running independent media companies, we think they probably would have failed for two different reasons. Like,
exactly. They would have failed.
They would have failed. I think it works because we're together and we bring different skill sets and different viewpoints to things. I'm constantly looking at things going, and I want to reach this many people and I want to launch this many shows and have this many ideas. And if we were constantly doing that, the company simply would not exist. Like there would be no process. There would probably be no harmony amongst the team. It would be very, very difficult to run a business with my mindset. Zara's mindset would probably be...
I'd be probably too risk averse.
Yeah.
Like I think Michelle can push me and say, nah, I think we can get it done. Michelle can go, shoot, nah, we need to go all the way up here. And I'm like, well, you're going to burn everyone in the process.
Yes.
We can go here. And we sort of find that middle ground. And I do think that's why it's worked so well. We've had that really beautiful balance while also having a really similar instinct for what is interesting and what we care about. And I think that's incredibly lucky in so many ways. And also because we've worked at it. It's like I am so conscious. Like I do think there's a lot of luck involved in finding someone that you can run something with really well. But also you see how often these relationships fall apart.
Yeah.
And I think we talk about that a lot, not about our own relationship falling apart, but observing what may fracture other business relationships. I can see how it happens because we put so much work in our own relationship.
Yeah.
And I say with like the most amount of confidence, and I have no issue saying this. I would say this about my husband in the same way I would say this about Michelle. I have never worried about our friendship. Like not once. Not once do I think, oh, if I have this conversation with her, maybe it'll get really awkward. I have just like that's never crossed my mind.
I think we have the utmost amount of respect for each other. That, of course, disagreements come up. They've never come up about money, thank God. I know they can come up, money conversations come up frequently, or conflict can come up frequently for other people. For us, it's normally process maybe that comes up between us as a source of slight tension, and this would be once or twice a year. I have never sat in a room opposite Zara and felt like she hasn't respected me or vice versa. Because we have the utmost amount of respect for each other, every conversation is instantly not as intense. It's instantly calmer because I think as well, whenever we've raised something with each other, it's always met with an open mind, always.
Yeah, which I don't think always came naturally to me.
Well, we've been in business coaching about it as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We did business coaching a few years ago and then I have continued to do it. It's kind of like marriage counseling, I guess, to make sure that you're kind of fully on the same page.
Can you recommend your business coach? Is it someone that you can share?
Amy Cook, absolutely.
Oh my God,
Link in show notes.
We were walking together yesterday near our office and we were talking about something and our mindset
we
was so much...
We were talking about how we're constantly putting ourselves last.
Yeah.
If you want to be more specific.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if we'll say that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Amy has highlighted to us this year, very recently, that whenever we make a decision in the business, we are putting everything else ahead of ourselves and we come as the last consideration. And she has been excellent at highlighting that to us. First of all, I don't even think we were necessarily cognizant of it or as cognizant as we could be.
I think we were cognizant of it. We thought that it made us great founders. I think we used it as a badge of honor to say we are constantly coming last. You know, there's that Simon Sinek book, which is like, good leaders eat last. I was very much of the mindset, like, we come last at every juncture. We should come last a bit, but not every time.
Yeah.
And I think we've really had to rewire that, because we will not be able to do this for a really long time if we're constantly coming last.
Well, it's a recipe for resentment, right?
And
like,
disaster.
We don't want to resent the thing that we've built. Like, it needs to be a balancing act. And I think Amy has definitely highlighted to us the ways in which we could rebalance in that facet.
On that note, something I've noticed you both kind of consciously doing is, you mentioned, like, as you're launching new shows, you're not hosting them necessarily. And I can see how you're kind of like shifting the business to not just be about you as talent, which seems really intentional and also really smart. But I can imagine that's been like an ongoing conversation and something that you guys are working on. And I want to know what the thought is there, because you said you made the decision not to license the show in the beginning, and you would have been a creator business that you were at the face of, and that would have been it. But now you've built something that's so much more scalable, harder to do, but I think really worthwhile. Why did you kind of make that decision to like move yourselves out of just being talent, or like try and shift your role in the company?
I think it was two-pronged. The first was that it wasn't practical for all the revenue to be dependent on Michelle and I turning up and sitting at a table twice a week.
Yeah.
I think we at some point were like, well, we want kids. Michelle has a baby now. What do we do about this? Like, it's a huge amount of pressure, because we were still hiring and we were building a team. And so we were paying salaries, but everyone was reliant on us turning up in the same way. And that felt quite stressful to us. And there was absolutely no space for life to throw us curveballs, like not a single centimeter of space. And when it did, it just meant we had to work through them, which was pretty tough. And the second thing is that also we just didn't have the time. We made the decision to actually continue running the business as well, which was actually quite intentional, I think, without us realizing, because in my gut, I felt like at that point we were the best ones to do it. I don't know if long term we will always be the best ones to run the business. I think you have to have some level of self-awareness about that. But I did feel that when we were building other shows, I felt like we were best placed to lead the company, and that meant we couldn't do everything. Do you agree with that?
No, I completely agree with that. I think, you constantly have to turn back on yourself again, to the conversation we were having earlier. You constantly have to almost bird's eye the situation and be like, okay, we've always done it this way. Does it make sense to keep doing it this way? So far, the answer's been yes. Like, we love running the business. I think I turn to Zara all the time and say, like, God, I don't know how I got so lucky that I found someone who I agree with so much of the time.
Yeah. Yes, genuinely. And I think with the other pillars also, the benefit is like we started to have people in the team that we were able to train up and kind of breadcrumb them to the audience. So Annabelle was our on-air producer on Shameless before she got Everybody as a Secret. So people knew her and they're like, I really like her. She's fun. I wish I could hear more from her. And then we would give her show. And that's always been very deliberate. People have kind of been tested in so many ways in that on-air producer role.
Yeah.
The on-air producer role in our shows serves kind of two-pronged. It just makes everything feel a lot more fun when there's a third laugh and a lot lighter.
Yeah.
There's a really deliberate, obvious laugh track there that lifts the entire thing and feels more like a group chat. But second, it's a very easy way for us to test talent and train talent on the go, which is what we've done every time before those people have been elevated to their own shows.
Yeah, well, Ruby's the host of Inherited. She started out as the on-air producer, of Everybody as a Secret. So it's kind of like this amazing training ground for hosting talent. It's very, very difficult to find people who are amazing podcast hosts, and it's just been incredible to be able to the team is learning via osmosis, I think, in the space. Like they see it done so much and they rub shoulders with each other and it just ripples out. Like it's often that we'll be thinking of the next show, thinking of the next pillar, and we'll go, and who's going to host it? And the host is sitting in the four walls of the office.
Yeah, like Everybody has a Secret. We were looking for a new co-host a couple of months ago. And we were like, okay, talent is hard. Hosting talent is tough. And we were just looking around the office, and I think it was Annabelle that said, our videographer, Charlotte, is incredibly charismatic. And I was like, she is. And she knows content. That woman can put together the best video you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's transferable. But I think it does help that because the team, and we're constantly talking about what makes good content and what makes good hosting, that those people would learn via osmosis too, and we can elevate them.
So what does the team look like now for a media company of your size? Who's in there and how did you kind of like stack and layer the teams and building that out?
Well, we'll start with our senior leadership team. So we have a managing director. Her name's Ange. She is incredible. Ange Kloof. We have a head of podcasts, Lucy, head of social, Naima. We've got a head of business development in Ree. She was our second ever hire and she's now head of business development. We've obviously then got ourselves, and Annabelle is part of the senior leadership team as well. And then from there, I think you could probably draw a line through the office, 50% in the commercial team, 50% in editorial, which I feel like is a great balance.
Yeah, it is. And our editorial team are like incredibly talented, because I think a conscious decision we made early was to make sure that they were trained in audio and video and everything at the same time. Like they are
Bit of social media in
jack
there.
of all trades. They can all do almost everything. And that's what I think they want. Like I think they love that dynamicism in their day. And then our commercial team is also like one of the smallest commercial teams in the country for the amount of stuff they're trying to sell. Like I think if you had Shameless at a network, just Shameless podcast, there would be like 25 people selling that show.
Wow.
Yes.
We have one person and one campaign exec
Wow.
to hit our budgets.
Wow.
That's how great they are.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. Okay. How do you hire those people? How do you find talent like that?
I think we've actually learned, I mean, we've made some great hires along the way, but also our senior leadership team is really amazing at making hires. So often if someone's in editorial, the people doing the hires are Ange and Lucy often, or if it's in commercial, it's Ange and Ray.
In the early days, we did a lot of LinkedIn stalking. Like I would go, I haven't done this in a while, but there was a period where like 4 hires in a row were because we were going into the depths of LinkedIn and DMing people, and we had advertised for the role, but just hadn't seen an application that had blown our socks off. So we pulled people away from jobs that they were ostensibly quite happy about. And I think that actually was solid building blocks for the rest of the team. I think the other thing that we've learned, and we were actually talking about this on the way here, when it comes to interviewing, and we don't do a heap of it anymore. Sometimes we'll sub in if we need to.
It's often if someone's sick, we'll sub in.
It's like, oh, yeah, we'll be the sub in. I think one thing we've learned is never to be afraid of someone who's nervous in the interview. I think there is this fallacy that you have to hire the most confident person in front of you, or the one that's like saying everything perfectly. Sometimes I've been quite struck by like how impressive quiet confidence is, and how impressive just like a slight bit of nerves are, because I really think it shows they care. And I really think in those kinds of people, there's a level of humility where they know what they know, and they also know what they don't know, so they'll continue to ask questions.
Very willing to learn. And I think in a business like ours, willing to learn and willing to work in slightly different ways is really important. And so, yeah, some of the best hires we've made have been the women sitting across from us in interviews who are a little bit jittery or are stumbling over their words a little bit. Like, obviously you need to find a balance and they need to be able to articulate themselves. But some of the best hires we've ever made have been the women who don't immediately come across as confident. But once you actually open your mind, you have a conversation with them, you can see that passion bubbling away, and you can see the nerves are actually just reflective of how badly they want this job.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I've never heard it framed like that before, but yeah, that's super, super interesting. I want to switch gears for a second and talk about how you monetize a podcast. What are the ways that you do it?
We have a very simple model. We have a very simple model. So, I mean, at the moment, we do some dynamic advertising. So if anyone confused, I guess if you are like a YouTube watcher, you'll probably be familiar. Dynamic advertising is where people put markers in a piece of content and then you get served an ad. So we do a little bit of that, but really at Shameless Media, we keep it really simple. We bake in ads. So as an episode's edited, we have an ad actually put in that piece of audio. A brand will typically pay for our holistic model. I am going to give a shout out to our head of business development, Ree. She loves that terminology. The holistic model is they pay for podcast advertising in conjunction with newsletter advertising, in conjunction with social media advertising.
I love that.
And events as well. And I think that was one of the things that we did really early. The podcasting industry is really different, really kind of specific in the way that most shows will sell. This will get a bit technical, but I think it's probably important to kind of illustrate how differently we do it, which is to say that everybody sells on something called a CPM model, which is, hey, it's going to be $20 per 1,000 listeners for the ad that you hear at the start of the episode. And that $20 can kind of go anywhere between maybe like $20 and $300. We early on, and I think it was, again, two-pronged. Firstly, we were new to the podcasting industry, so we didn't quite get it.
Mm.
And secondly, we were like, well, we just think we set our own prices, like a flat fee of what this is worth, because they're not just getting podcasting, they're also getting social and they're also getting newsletter. And at that time, no one was doing that. No one was hitting the consumer in 3 different ways or in 3 different places. So we just set our own rates and ignored the CPM model. And now when we tell people that, we're like, oh, they're like, what's your CPM? We're like, no,
We don't do
we
that.
Don't do that. A huge part of it was that we didn't get it at the start. But also I was
Yeah.
like, this is a hugely engaged community. And we are not just selling audio.
Totally. It doesn't
This is
make sense
different.
to-
Also,
yeah.
a lot of this stuff, like say we're working with a beauty brand, which Stylish does a lot of work with beauty brands. Yes, so much value is in audio. Like you really can do so much storytelling. It is so intimate. It feels like a friend in your ears. Like audio advertising is so rich. But the story is more than that. If you want a visual of that product and you want to actually be able to see it and almost like imagine the experience visually, if you want to read about it, those are different forms of advertising that all have value. So when someone comes to us, it's like, yes, of course we can do a podcast ad, but why not also show them the product on social and write about the product in the newsletter and give you this real holistic 360 approach that you have multiple touch points with this listener, with this audience member, and they can see it and hear it and visualize it in a completely different way than if we were just relying on one medium.
So smart.
Thanks. Well, it's not just us.
I want to know what your process is for launching a new show. Like, how do you launch, promote? Do you have the same kind of rollout? What do you do?
We try to have a different rollout every time. I think for Stylish, what we really wanted to do, and again, like I would be lying if I said this is Michelle and me just sitting there. We had a whole like team of people whose job wasn't strictly marketing, but then suddenly became our marketing team through this, which was Ange, Nikita, and Ray sit down and say, these are the fun things we want to do. And with Stylish, it was very much like we just want to like paint the town red. The color was red. It was very much the color of the year when it came to like fashion and beauty and all of those kinds of things. And there is something really important for us for those like in real life touch points with our community. I know you feel the same. We're not good at doing live shows, and live shows are the perfect marketing for any show. It's, the perfect launch for any show, but getting in front of people. So what we did for Stylish was we had like a pop-up and we had these bright red tote bags. And I remember walking back to the office after we did this little pop-up event, and all I could see all down Swan Street, which is like the busiest street in Richmond in Melbourne, was red. All I could see was red, and it was amazing.
And then we had Stylish branded broadsheets. Like we made a Stylish newsletter. I know that's actually something that's been done a lot by different brands now, but Ree came up with that idea and was really at the forefront of that little trend in marketing as well. So we had these broadsheets in local cafes as well. It was so tangible. Like you could really see the Stylish brand. When it came to Inherited, which launched later that year, we just did an intimate event. Like we had brand partners and we had a little live interview with Zara Seidler, our friend in the industry. She's the co-founder of the Daily Oz. And it was an opportunity for brand partners to come and to see a conversation between Ruby and Zara and have a meal together. And Ree was behind that event and made sure the meal was very homely. I think we had roast chicken.
Yeah.
The little things about that make it really specific to that show and what that community will probably look like.
You're building out worlds for all of them, I think. And for us, that's been really important that they all have very distinct worlds, very distinct tones. I think even with launching a show, marketing wise, I think the thing we have been very specific about is tone. And Michelle's amazing at this, if you've got one Instagram post that could go on every single pillar, what is the different caption and what is the different way that this is framed? Because it is not going to be framed the same way with all of them. They're all going to have very different levels of earnestness, dryness, savageness, edginess for sure. And making sure that voice is really obvious from the start is really important to us.
Well, we're building a media company, right? So if we were always talking to the same woman, we're just going to reach that kind of woman.
Yeah.
And so when we're building new pillars, I mean, ideally, someone will come to Shameless Media and they'll kind of select different pillars like a menu. I personally, if I was looking at our shows, I'd go, okay, I'm a Shameless listener and everybody has a secret listener. Zara probably leans more towards Stylish as her perfect pillar. Other people lean towards Inherited, that kind of thing. But you want to continually branch out and build that audience. Like if you only use the same tone and speak to one kind of person, you are limiting yourself to that person. So whenever we add a new pillar, it's not just going, okay, we'd listen to it. It's going, okay, and we'd access this kind of listener who can then come into our ecosystem and be a totally new audience that we're unlocking in this part of the world.
This is so interesting and inspiring to me as someone who is in this space. Like I could listen to you guys talk about this all day.
Do you know the other thing I also should shout out when it comes to how we actually build the marketing is we've done a lot of insight stuff now. And I think early days we did a lot of research just, on Instagram and just like free research. When we had the means, we actually started paying for research and getting typologies, of our...
Explain what typology means.
Like if you imagine our network, what we got given basically from a bunch of research was like, here are your 5 key people that consume your products and here's what they like. And it's like a grouping of people.
Building out a profile of each one.
Yeah. And so for us, particularly when it came to Inherited being launched and Michelle pushing like, I want interviews. I want to listen to interviews, and me being like, I'm not interested in interviews unless it's different. It was like, okay, well, we knew there was one key typology that we weren't speaking to properly and that we could actively market something to. And that typology was probably a slightly more earnest person. Maybe
introspective.
Yeah, like an introvert. And so when you're building tone and marketing, you're also matching it to try and match not just a great show, but to that typology too. So it's kind of as when I call it a world, it's really a world.
Yeah, wow.
It's also a great way to cross-check your ideas as they come up. I constantly am like thinking of what the next idea is that we might pursue or whatever. And the way to know that it's probably an idea that would work. I think I probably sit on an idea for maybe 3 to 6 months before I bring it to Zaz.
I'm so curious about your creative process for this.
There's not much.
Zaggy brains.
I think I often sit on an idea for months at a time, and I'll take it to my husband and I'll toss it around with him, and then I'll sit with it for a bit, and then I'll put together a Canva presentation. So I've got 2 Canva presentations for Zara, which she's never seen.
Oh no.
Which is like what the next pillar could be in a universe.
Oh yeah, but you've been breadcrumbing this for a while, but I am not in the mental capacity.
No, I sense that.
I do not have the mental capacity for another pillar right
It's not the time. So also the Canva presentations aren't ready yet. I'm still I plot out my thoughts and I write. So for example, this new pillar idea I've had, which we're not ready to do anyway, but
look at
me be like, it's not, don't worry. I will try and come up with this particular pillar. I've tried to come up with 100 episodes.
Oh, wow.
We would do under it. Because if you're coming up with an idea, we're not going to do a seasonal podcast. It's not, to be blunt, it's not good enough for making money. You need to have an always on show. It needs to be a niche idea that is deep, that you can come up with 100 episodes that I would personally listen to, and I think Zara would personally listen to, for that to be a viable idea. So I'm currently waiting for the ideas to come up till I get to 100. I'm currently at 76.
Well, and this is the other thing. We see once you often show me these, it's like, okay, I agree with you that some of these episodes, but I still don't want to listen to that. And then we have to sit down after that and say, if these are the episodes ideas, what's the actual run sheet? Like, what are the specifics in that to make sure that we can keep pushing it out? And
what's the hosting structure? How long is the episode?
Join and kind of that's where I enter the creative process generally, which has always worked for us. Michelle's always like, here's the big thing I want to do. And I will come in and say, yes, part of that, but part of that.
And have you considered this? And this is the flag as to why it might not work.
And we build it together.
Yeah.
And that's how we like doing it.
Wow. The last thing I want to ask you both is for a resource recommendation. So something that's been helping you as you've been building your businesses. Maybe it's been helping you as you've been up leveling as leaders. You mentioned business coaching and the business coach, which is such a helpful, tangible one. But are there any apps, tools? Do you use a planner? Is there anything that people can go and they're like, okay, I want to do what you're doing. Give me a micro step to go and download the app that you use to run your day.
I wish we were founders. We are, and this is why sometimes I struggle in interviews like this, because it's I wish we were ultimate founders. I think we are content people who became founders. That said, I mean, I listen to every episode now of Aspire by Emma Grede, just other people's stories I find incredibly helpful. What else do you listen to?
This is the problem. I don't. I think if I was to give a practical tip as to how we actually have built this thing and what we do, I would say when people look at our Google Calendar, and I know this is getting really niche, they would be like, what the fuck is this? Almost every 15-minute block is accounted for when we are together.
Oh,
every
wow.
15 minutes. So if something is on the to-do list, that is an event in our calendar. It is matching the exact time. We are very specific at getting things done very quickly. We try and maximize all our time together.
That's true, actually. I do think efficiency and being really considered about your time is the only way we have lives outside of this. It is the only way.
What do your days look like?
They're pretty manic,
15-minute intervals, yeah.
So if we're together, so I'm not full-time in the business at the moment because I've got a 4-month-old baby, but when I am at work and we have, say, a half day together, from the moment the clock ticks 8:30, we are back to back before I then head off. Every minute, almost every minute is accounted for.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it is being really self-aware about like how well you're using your time. I think we are great at using time, and that's why we are able to not work now late into the nights.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you have that boundary of like, you don't work weekends?
Don't work weekends,
Yep.
and we try not to work past like 5:36.
Amazing.
We're really, really strict on it. I mean, it's been huge for our sanity, practically. We've been, I don't think it's luck. It's something we set out to do from the start. The minute we were able to, we could have grown this business faster if we worked more. Like, we've known that from the start. It was a really considered decision for us to say, well, we really like our lives outside of this, and this will be a better business if we're bringing great ideas from outside of our life, from outside of our work. That was also two-pronged. It will not grow without ideas and life and happiness outside of it. But also it's just like we know it grew at a slower pace, and that's what we made peace with.
I'd also say the hours spent outside the business, say we both leave, like when we're full-time or when we were working full-time, we do 8:30 to 4:30, right? And then outside of that time, we try not to talk about work at all. What we are talking about, though, is we're texting 24/7, really, because we're really good friends. We are sending things about the industry, or we're sending things about content, or we're sending things that we've listened to. And so I wouldn't call it work. It's not work, but it is constantly kind of re-honing that vision for the company, even though we're not intentionally doing it. We're putting in PR disasters. We're putting in quotes that we think are that could have been better, or that maybe really hit the mark, or statements that we loved. And we're constantly inching towards like, who is Shameless Media as a brand? What are we doing? What's the content we're creating? Even though it's not work, that is happening all the time outside of the business.
I wonder if you guys both feel like this as business owners, or if anyone else is feeling listening to this too. But I was talking to an author recently who said that when she finishes a book, it feels like a window and her brain is open and fresh air comes in. And then she said, when do you feel that? And I thought, I have great boundaries with my job, but I don't think I've ever felt that since I started. I do not think I've ever felt this window open and the fresh air come in. And I think that's the trade-off of building something, is sometimes you may not have that for a very long time, even when you are really boundary.
I totally get that.
But I enjoy bouncing and being, in many ways, I enjoy being consumed by the industry and what's going on. I just don't want to be at my desk all the time.
Yeah.
There was a long way of not being practical. So I listened to Aspire by Emma Green.
Use your Google Calendar.
And use Google Calendar. And just, be really self-aware about whether you're using your time well or not.
Yeah, because it is so easy to bleed into the nights, like just to let the day bleed over, because there's enough to do, and you are the one that is responsible ultimately for your own time and your own calendar. Like, I see myself do this, even though, I have set work days. I find myself often like in the evenings, I'm like, oh, I'll just like sit on the couch and do X, Y, Z. And it's just actually not good for your brain.
No, it's not. And I also think it's really interesting because it's a question we get all the time. And I think there's an expectation that if you're a founder, you should be working all the time.
I saw the most messed up, like, I think it was the New York Times, and they did a video, and it was all about like young AI founders and how often they work.
Oh, no.
And I was sitting there like, this makes me feel sick.
We don't work all the time.
And
we
I
genuinely
think
don't.
there is an expectation that if you're doing it properly and you're doing it well, you're working all the time.
Yes.
And I think it's a bit of a wank, if I'm honest. And to be really candid, I think, in the early days, some businesses do require you to grind.
And we did. For a couple of years, we worked 7 days a week.
I just do not believe that you need to do that 24/7 as you're scaling. You are making a decision to scale at a certain pace if that's how often you want to work.
This is actually bundled in with one of our other beliefs. I believe that to be true. I think sometimes other founders like to portray an image that's almost exclusive, to be like, you could never achieve this because you don't want to work 24/7.
Yes, it's that. It's like, no, that's not true.
I think it's similar to how we talk about business jargon. We feel like we've sat in a million meetings, particularly with businessmen or just anyone from the corporate world, to be honest.
A lot of men.
And the jargon that is used is intentionally excluding people. It's intentionally trying to make you sound like you are so smart and so knowledgeable in one area. You're trying to bamboozle the people sitting opposite you.
Yep.
Like, we really value communication where everything is so clear. We want everyone in the room to leave with a crystal clear picture of what was discussed. We want to make sure everyone feels included, and the language that we're using is as simple and clear as possible. It's probably the same thing. I think in the world of business, a lot of people are interested in making things feel exclusive, and I don't think they need to be. I don't think you need to work 24/7. I don't think you need to use jargon.
I definitely don't think you need to use jargon. And I think in the early years, we had to really risk feeling stupid by stopping people and saying, I need you to stop using that terminology. Now I don't feel stupid at all. I think because we've done it so often, to stop people and say,
And we've realized
WhatsApp.
we're not stupid. We've realized they're actually they're
that
actually
helps.
intentionally using language to
Yes.
try and make us
Well, they're
feel
trying
stupid.
to justify their own
Position.
ranking.
Yes.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to justify their salary, their position, like
I'm
all
so
of it.
high level. I'm so
Yes,
high level. I'm using
totally.
terminology you could never possibly grasp.
Yes.
And it's like, no, we're all capable
Yes.
of understanding. If we all use language, we all
Understand.
100%. I can also just get ChatGPT to explain this to me.
Yeah.
Thank you both for coming on the show. It has been incredible, firstly, to just watch what you're building, but then to hear the behind the scenes and the story of how you've been doing it. I've been wanting to ask you these questions forever and ever and ever. So selfishly, this has been so just great for me as a business owner. And I know you guys are incredibly busy. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having us.
No, thank you for having us.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Love what you're building. As I said, I do love listening to founders' stories. So it's a real joy to be part of yours.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
I just wanted to jump in and end the show with a quick thank you and shout out to all of our paid Business Besties subscribers. Business Besties bypass literally years of networking by getting access to all of the people that you need to build your dream business. You also get invited to exclusive monthly group business coaching call sessions where you can speak to experts and founders and ask them all of those questions that you just can't Google. You can cancel anytime. Head to bestie.femalefounderworld.com or click the link in the show notes for more.